Networking is the key, even though most of the translation or interpreting work is done, offline. We still
Yeah.
work with real people who
Yes.
most of the times are even close by. Of course, we have international customers, but I think most of us, we mainly work with the local customers and agencies.
And I always say like networking is not just about, finding your next client. It's about exchanging ideas. Like I went pretty recently in two networking events. It was a conference, and then there was there was an event for entrepreneurs, people that was like starting on their business. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm going there, and I'm not an entrepreneur, but you know what? I'm just gonna get an idea. I think we live in an era where personal branding is very fundamental if you want to stand out. And competition is big. You do have a lot of people doing the same thing. Some people are doing it better than the others, but this is where personal branding comes in, because you are showing a piece of yourself, your most authentic self, to the world. And there are so many ways that you can do it, of course. And I think especially when you talk about being an introvert, or translators who are shy to be on camera and so forth, some ways that you can do are using not necessarily, let's say, YouTube, or not necessarily using, an Instagram.
Urmi, did you ever have this imposter syndrome, and how do you navigate it? And what advice would you give to women and men as well in freelancing or small businesses?
So imposter syndrome, you know what? I heard this word many, many times, and I even participated to a lot of webinars and workshops about it. And let me tell you this, I think in one way or the other, we all go through that. We're just not aware of it. We're really just not aware of it. Like when we start second guessing ourselves, when we're just wondering, why am I here? Did I deserve this to be here? Those are signs of imposter syndrome.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniela, and this is the Translation Podcast, a space where we can learn, share, and grow together. Please subscribe and like the show. It will help me grow and keep this content for the community. Let's get started. Hi everyone, welcome to the second season of the Translation Podcast. This is the second episode, and it is my pleasure to welcome Urmi Hossain. Urmi Hossain is a woman who wears many hats. She's a self-published author, speaker, blogger, podcast host, polyglot, mentor, and holder of both the CFA, the Chartered Financial Analyst, and the CAIA, Chartered Alternative Investment Analyst designations. Urmi works in the financial services industry in Canada, where she currently resides. Her first book, Discovering Your Identity, a rebirth from interracial struggle, reflects her journey as a third culture kid, navigating questions of belonging, culture, and self-worth. Urmi is the host of Stories Beyond Borders, a podcast that amplifies diverse voices and explores stories of identity, migration, language, and what home really means. Passionate about women's empowerment, she serves as the co-chair of Women in Leadership's Montreal chapter. She's also a strong advocate for continuous learning and personal growth. One of her greatest passions is public speaking, and she has been active in Toastmasters since 2019, having served both as their VP of Education and club president. In her spare time, Urmi enjoys reading thrillers and mystery novels and staying active through boxing, HIIT workouts, and running. Wow, that's impressive. Welcome, Urmi.
Thank you for having me, Daniela.
Thank you so much for joining today. And I want to start with the languages that you speak. So you describe yourself as speaking 4.5 languages. Would you like to tell my audience what that means?
Yes, I do like to be very specific, so that's why I say 4.5. So basically, the four languages that I speak fluently are English, French, Bengali, and Italian. Some of them I learned them from birth. Some of them I learned them as I moved around. Some others I learned them at school. And then the point five, it's Spanish, which is a work in progress. It's a language that I am very passionate about. I took three classes when I was in university, and I have to say I knew how to present and everything, but then I kind of like lost it in between, and now I'm like, no, I have to go back at it. So I've been like working on it. I've been taking classes. So the point five is Spanish.
I love that. Tell us more about you, or where you were born. Where did you study? How is it now living in Canada?
Yes, so basically, I was born and raised in Italy. So I have lived my whole life in Italy, although we moved around from the south to the north. We also went to the UK for a year, came back to Italy. So I would say I did like about 20 years in Italy. I did most of my school in Italy, and then I moved to Canada where I did my university. So I do have a bachelor degree in finance, and in Montreal, of course, it's a bilingual city, so you need to know how to speak both English and French. So I basically studied my whole life in Italian. Then I moved to Canada and I did my university in English, and now I work in a French environment. So basically, I am just using every single language that I know in my daily life.
I love that. So, what has being a multilingual taught you about communication, culture, and connection?
I can definitely tell you that being multicultural, I think it just taught me how to make better connections from a global point of view and how to be mindful of the differences. Like we often think about, let's say, language as it's sort of like the door opener. It's the first thing that connects it to another person. But being multicultural and being open-minded is what helps to build that foundation and those connections. So being multicultural really helped me to be very open-minded, very welcoming, and seeing things from a curious point of view. Everything is so different, and we just have to be open to learn from other people. And so being multicultural really helped me to have a different perspective of the world, but also build, let's say, even my friendship, they're all very multicultural. Like if you see the circle of my friends, you'll have someone from each part of the world. So that's what it really helped me to build better connections and to be very much open-minded.
I love that. And as a language learner, what strategies have worked best for you? Especially that you've learned so many languages, but also as an adult trying to balance a demanding career.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk more about how it was for me to learn that as an adult, especially for someone who's working at a corporate level in a corporate job. Because of course, I think when we think about learning languages, typically the first time that you're learning a language, it usually happens at home or at school. But then once you become an adult, then you go through other challenges. And for me, what worked really well is block timing, or blocking basically the time in your calendar. So basically, one thing that I've been doing, especially with my Spanish, is dedicating a little bit of my time, and by little bit, I really mean 10 to 15 minutes, not more than that, to constant learning every day. Like maybe, especially for someone who is working in the professional environment, doesn't have time, but you do have 10, 15 minutes, which is pretty easy to incorporate in your day to day. And basically, like every evening, especially after work, I watch some videos, 10, 15 minutes, take notes, and that's how I've done my learning. And I usually put it on my calendar. Like I actually have my time blocked for those 10, 15 minutes because they make me accountable. And I can look at my calendar and be like, okay, is there anything that I have to do? And I just go and follow that. So I would say that that's a very good way, especially for people working, having 9 to 5, or even for anyone who's running a business. Like running a business is a lot of work. Like it's not 9 to 5; it's more like 9 to 9. But you do find time for 10 minutes just to dedicate for yourself, and see that as you nurturing your soul, and putting time for yourself and putting yourself first. So that's a good way. And then the second thing that I have done is to basically incorporate in my day to day certain things, such as, let's say you want to unwind from like a very like a heavy day, then maybe you can watch some shows that are in the language that you're learning. So that you're mixing pleasure with work. And then the other thing that I very much enjoy, especially because I'm a big walker, is let's say you're walking with your dog. What you can do is that you can listen to something. Let's say if you're learning Spanish, you can listen to an episode of your favorite podcast and do the job of like walking and learning at the same time. So those are some easy way to incorporate that if you have a busy schedule.
I love that. And I love the point about making the time, because it's all about prioritization and making
Yeah,
time for the things that we love and we're passionate about, and having something to do outside of work, right? So having
that's
a
right.
passion, an occupation that makes you feel good and also unwind. I love that you said that, and I also do the same. So I even now I watch all the movies and series with subtitles even in English, because I
Yeah.
always like to check the spelling and so on. So it's a way to keep my brain awake, and
Hmm.
it also might be really interesting for you to talk with Spanish speakers at work or in Canada. I think there are so many people coming from different backgrounds, and this is the beauty. Before, when I was a child, long time ago, because I was born in the 1980s, I used to write
Oh,
letters to my friends, right? So now you can actually talk to people in the office,
yes.
or set up some short calls to practice with them. So that's a benefit actually when you work in a multicultural environment.
That's right. Yes. I love the idea of like writing letters. I just feel like it's so much more intimate and more special. Like I know unfortunately we don't do that anymore, but I do like that idea of like writing letters. And also like in relation to that, especially if you're learning a language, I think what's good as well is that if you're journaling in the language that you're learning, so that you are practicing your writing skills. There is this girl that I follow. Her name is Joe Franco. I don't know if you know her, but she did some shows on Netflix, and she's big on journaling, and she knows I think 7 or 8 languages. And one of the things that she shares is how like you can work on the language that you're learning by journaling in that language. And so she shares a little bit of her tips and strategies on how she's able to do that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I think that's a great idea. I haven't thought about it that way. I was mainly thinking about, reading and the traditional ways of learning, but journaling is such a great idea because it pushes you to think in that language.
Yeah,
And, linguistics say that we even have a different personality when we speak a certain language. So we come up differently with every
that's
language
right.
that we speak, depending on the cultural references that we have. So obviously, when we speak in our native language, we are speaking in one way, right? Even the tone of the voice or the intonation changes, or the debit, and even the words that you would choose. So it's really
Yeah,
interesting. And
yeah.
um, if you use English at work, same as you and I, you have a different vocabulary, right? Which is very corporate focused and so on.
That's
So
That's right. And then depending on which field you're in, we have
mhm.
even more different words and vocabulary. So it changes. And also I do agree on what you said about depending on what language you speak, you change. I do think that each language brings different personalities of ours. Like I do think that, for instance, when I'm speaking in Italian, I feel like there is my outgoing and loud side that's coming out. Whereas when I'm speaking English, I feel like there's a more professional type of person coming out, especially because I use it more from a professional point of view. And the same goes with French. I would say, like, I feel like there is a quiet side of me that it's coming out.
I love that. And speaking about speaking about working in finance, you also have a strong creative presence, Urmi, and you do so many things. How do you balance your professional and your personal brand?
I would say one thing that I have been doing a lot is putting boundaries and making sure that the two things are not intertwined with each other, because I feel like as an individual there is you being part of a company, but then there is you outside of that company. And especially when you're pursuing, let's say, outside, like work outside, like interests outside of work, you want to make sure that you are known for that kind of person. And for me, what has worked really well is, again, putting boundaries and making sure that the two things are not, and there's no fusion between the two, but also like using a lot my Google Calendar. I'm very like I was telling this to another person. I said my Google Calendar is my best friend. As like you have your 9 to 5, but then you have your 5 to 9. And as soon as I'm done with my stuff, I'm like, that's it. I'm done. I'm closing this. Like I'm not staying like an extra hour anywhere. I just have to go and do my own thing. And Google Calendar has been really, really helpful. Every time I have to do something, it's pretty much spread out throughout the week and also weeks, I would say. And I use a lot my to-do list. I think though my to-do list really helps me to stay organized, and also makes me accountable. Like if I see that something is written on a to-do list and then I don't do it, I tell myself, damn, I'm like, damn, I should have done it, So it makes me accountable. Like I am accountable with my own self, especially because a lot of the things I do them on my own. No one is helping me. And so those two tools has been super, super helpful. And I do want to suggest for anyone, especially for those who are running businesses, like your Google Calendar is going to be your best friend. And especially if you don't want to forget things because you have so much to do, Google Calendar is going to be your lifesaver.
I agree, definitely. Plus 100 on that. I use my calendar both at work, with my podcast, with the translation work that I do, and also in my personal life. Like
Hmm.
I seem to be working really well when it comes to setting reminders, and that's a nice little way of using technology instead of
Hmm.
having everything in your mind and stressing
Yeah.
about things, but also checking things off your list can be really enjoyable. So I think a lot of people relate to that. And I love how you said about setting boundaries and compartmentalizing. I think that is why successful you and other successful people manage to balance out so many things and do it successfully because they're able to compartmentalize and allocate 100% of their passion and effort into one thing, because you schedule things and you set up time for them and you prioritize
That's
them
right.
and you compartmentalize them. So
Yes.
that is really good.
Yes.
So, how is working in finance? So, for you, has this always been your passion? You obviously studied financial services. How has it
I
been for
would.
you?
It's been pretty great, I have to say, and I do very much enjoy every bit of it. I did enjoy my university life. I remember, enjoying like a happy kid going to school, and listening to my professors, um, going to write my exams. That was like those were like happy moments for me. And I always say, like, if you choose the right thing, if you choose something that you're passionate about, it will feel effortless. And that's how I felt, especially when I was studying in the library. Like I was never tired of being in the libraries for like 10 hours, I very much enjoyed every bit of it. And of course, even working in finance is something that I enjoy because I think it matches really well with my personality. Like I'm very dynamic, and finance is like that too. It's always ever changing, evolving. So there is, I feel like, a match made in heaven. And the thing is, of course, there are challenges like in every industry. Like finance is very male dominated, so I have to be, aware of that. It's I feel like there's a lot of men and working in certain levels of a company. And of course, sometimes you can see a lack of representation, lack of diversity. But I'm here to stay because I worked hard for this, and I want to be that person who's going to drive the change and be an inspiration for other people.
I love that. I resonate with a lot of things that you've said because I also work in IT, so it is
Oh,
important to represent to represent women and to represent different cultures.
yeah,
And I hear your passion in your voice that makes things easy, right? So from
yeah,
school to being, in a demanding work environment and balancing a lot of things out. So I love that. I think passion is such an important ingredient to our lives. I'm pretty much the same when it comes to changes. I love change.
mm-hmm.
While some people are more resistant to change or more reluctant, I'm the same. And I think that's a must-have nowadays, with everything
Yeah,
that is coming up. I also talk a lot about AI for translators and a lot
right.
of them new technology, just to emphasize the fact that we have to change, right? So with the profession, and we're so lucky that the translation world has been using computer assisted tools and what we
Yeah,
call machine translation tools for
mm-hmm.
more than 25 years now, so we're kind of ahead of the curve in many ways.
Yeah.
um, but it's good to keep up with what is going on in the market and in your profession. I wanted to ask you, Urmi, since you are talking a lot about personal branding in the talks that you host, many translators struggle with visibility because most of us
Yes.
are introverts. We're kind of hiding behind our screens, and being on social media or being visible online requires a lot of effort for sure and a lot of consistency. So what advice would you give them about building a personal brand and standing out in a competitive field?
Yeah. Let me tell you this. I think we live in an era where personal branding is very fundamental if you want to stand out. And competition is big. You do have a lot of people doing the same thing. Some people are doing it better than the others. And but this is where personal branding comes in because you are showing a piece of yourself, your most authentic self to the world. And there are so many ways that you can do it, of course. And I think especially when you talk about, being an introvert or translators who are shy to be on a camera and so forth, some ways that you can do are using not necessarily, let's say, YouTube, or not necessarily using, an Instagram reel. Like, for instance, one thing that I think might work for a lot of translator is basically using LinkedIn, where they share some of their work, some of the things they have done. Especially if you're shy on a camera and you don't want people to see your face, you can like share a piece of the work that you have done. And the important thing about that is that when you're sharing things, let's say on LinkedIn, or maybe you're sharing a newsletter to an organization that you're part of, and maybe you have your own blog, what's important about that is the consistency, especially when it comes to building your personal brand. Because let's say you do it once and then good night, we don't look at it anymore, then that's not part of your personal brand. You cannot put that in your kit of the things that you have accomplished, in your portfolio, the way how, if you want to call it in another way. You have to be consistent, but you also want to make sure that it's something that you can do on a regular basis. Like, let's say you don't have time to do this on a regular, let's say every day, but you can post once a week or twice a week, then be consistent with that. Because, for instance, for myself, like I also have a podcast too, but I don't release an episode every week because it's impossible for me to put the time in it. I release an episode every 3 weeks, but it's clear to my audience. To my audience, it is coming out every 3 weeks. So for a translator who's like trying to build, their personal brand, it's important that they're consistent, but at the same time, they want to make sure that whatever they're talking about or writing is or translating, it's aligned with themselves, because that's how you build that your personal brand, because you are the brand. Typically, it starts from you, even when you're not selling, let's say a product, but you're selling or you're telling the world about the knowledge that you have. So that would be my advice.
I love that. You've said so many things, and there's a lot to unpack there. I love the consistency piece. I really agree with it because no matter if maybe you send newsletters, right? So maybe you send newsletters to your client or to whomever your audience is, and you keep them up to date with who you are and what you're working on, or maybe you're more active on social media, and it can only be through posts as well. So not
Yeah.
everybody is so comfortable with being on video as you said, but being there is really important, and being visible, because there are so many translators who are not present or
Mm-hmm.
present enough on social media. And I feel that today, going back to digital marketing, customers look you up online. I mean, we no longer have
Yes.
phone books to see, who's the translator in my area, right? And look them up. So we no longer have those yellow pages. So you have to be there, and keeping in mind that the big translation agencies invest such a massive budget in ads, in online advertising. It's important to be there and to have your portfolio. So I think the minimum is to have a website, even if it's a
Yes.
two-page website, doesn't matter, or a LinkedIn page. LinkedIn works really well
Yes.
with SEO, so it is visible on all the major platforms. So you can look up
Yeah.
everyone there. And also, there's another thing with the internet, and I think nowadays, I don't know if you have the same experience in Canada, but in the UK there are a lot of scammers. So it
Mm-hmm.
is really difficult,
Yes.
for people to tell who's a real person and who's, scamming me for, translation services or legal services, as an example.
That's
And
right.
then that is how people differentiate you. People are so smart, regardless, what's their age. They look you up on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok. They
Yes.
they find ways to find
Yes.
you and see if it's, the real Urmi, or if it's just, a scammer who pretends to be
Yes.
you.
Yes. We're good stalkers, basically.
We are, but that's a good thing. And I think that's
Yes.
one of the skills that we underestimate having, in the age of technology, being able to do research and to use all the resources at our disposal. Great. So let's
Yes.
um let's talk a little about public speaking, Urmi, which
Mm-hmm.
is one of the pet peeves probably for many of us. I heard about Toastmasters. I've never been a member, but I've heard about, the great work and the real evolution that you undertake when you're a member and you go through the process. Can I ask you, what role has being in Toastmasters played in building your confidence and career? And do you also think, what would you advise translators who want to, not necessarily become public speakers, but be more, let's say, vocal online?
Yeah, let me tell you this. It's the change it has made in my life has been tremendous. I'm forever grateful to Toastmaster, forever grateful to the founder who decided to create this club because I think people not are not aware that Toastmasters, yes, you go there for public speaking, but it's not necessarily just public speaking. It's about networking, it's about building leadership, it's about becoming better communicator, it's about building those critical thinking skills. And of course, like when I went the first time, I was very nervous. I was just like, I want to run away from here. I don't know what's gonna happen. I was like, if they call me to speak, I'm just gonna die on the spot. But it has, like I say, confidence comes from actions. So the more I went, the more I was able to become comfortable and build my confidence, which was, I would say, translated in other aspects of my life. Like by being at Toastmasters, I feel like I was able to build, first of all, an online presence. I was much more comfortable, creating my podcast, creating my YouTube channel, being called and to go to different shows, being called to go and speak at conferences. And for a translator, I would say that public speaking is very important because when we think about translation in general, like what comes to my mind is communication, and Toastmasters really helps you to communicate better. And especially for translators who, let's say, they want to work on public speaking skills, if let's say they are running their own business, one thing that you want to be good at is being able to sell your service or to be persuasive. And I think Toastmasters can be very beneficial for translators who are, let's say, on their own, not working for someone. And let's say they're trying to get, clients, they want to be able to sell their translation services. And then the other thing as well that I think is beneficial for translators in general is that when you are Toastmasters, is that one thing that you want to be aware of is that the people who are there, they're not necessarily people that are your friends. Like meaning that these are people that go there for one goal only, which is to be better speakers. And so you get to meet people that are not people that would not be in your circle to begin with. So you enlarge your connections there, you broaden your horizon, you meet different people. And so for translator, that could be also an opportunity to find, let's say, new connections, maybe from one connection that leads to something else. Maybe you can, um, grow your business from there. Like it's so, like it has so many potentials, to be honest. So definitely, I would say, like, if a translator is looking for a way to invest in themselves, I would definitely say Toastmasters.
Hi there, it's Daniela. I'm just jumping in for a moment to remind you to subscribe and like the Translation podcast. Your support helps more people discover the show and keeps this content available for our community. Now, let's get back to the episode. I love that. Yeah, I think public speaking is an interesting one. You mentioned that it just evolves so many of your skills, and you don't really think about it. How you get better at not only speaking but also relating with people, right? So
Mm-hmm.
relating with people and talking to them, so thinking of things from an audience perspective. So I think
Yeah,
that's really interesting. And for translators, there are so many opportunities to speak at
yeah,
conferences. There are
that's
so many
it.
translators associations where you can share your knowledge, and you get better and better with every interaction, with every talk. So I think getting out of the comfort zone can bring so much joy and so
Yeah,
much so many rewarding experiences.
yeah,
Translators often work solo, or me. So,
yes.
what lessons from the corporate leadership would you say can help translators manage projects, clients, but also own their careers?
Yeah, you're right. They do work solo, and I think this can be really well tied to everything that we have discussed on so far, Like especially if you're working on your own, you are your own boss, right? So you decide everything, which means that you really have to be accountable, responsible for every actions that you take. And what's important again when it comes to that is to work on your personal brand for sure, because you are the brand, you are the face of your product, and also to go to networking events. So we mentioned Toastmasters, but it's not just that. There are so many opportunities for you to participate in any kind of events, and I highly recommend to people, especially translators working on their own, to participate to networking events because you get references from like referrals from word of mouth recommendations. So if you make a good impression on someone, or the perception that your service is so good, chances are that you will be referred clients to you. And so it's very important, especially for those working on their own, that they do this kind of work to have allies in their business, and to make sure that they make always a good impression, because working alone can be lonely sometimes, but for so many people running their own business and entrepreneurs, I feel like there are so many opportunities to come together and exchange ideas, and to treat every single client that you meet as your as stakeholders. You know, these are essential pillars of your business. You know, that's how you start, and that's how you continue to maintain those communications open with their clients, to make sure that they build a long-term relationship. It's very important for someone running their own business, especially the translation business.
I totally agree. Networking is the key, even though most of the translation or interpreting work is done, offline. We still
Yeah.
work with real people who
Yes.
most of the times are even close by. Of course, we have international customers, but I think most of us, we mainly work with the local customers and agencies. And in all the fields, there are so many conferences. If you work in the
Mm-hmm.
legal, I work mainly in the legal and medical field, and I try to be where I know that the legal companies are, so to meet them face to face, because it's so much difficult to try to call them or to send them an email. So they want to, trust you, and they want to see you, and they want to be able to trust you with important and confidential work. And I think
Yes.
in any field, it's important to meet face to face, but also to meet others, right? We talked about others.
Mm-hmm.
So translators are business owners, right? So our own we have our own business, so we
That's right.
can learn how are the others doing it, right? Are the others struggling with digital marketing or whatever it may be? How are they overcoming this? And just meeting people. I
Yeah.
remember one of the things that was difficult for me, starting up after uni, was working behind my screen and not seeing anyone. So that was tough. And now it's so much easier to go and meet people.
Yeah, and I always say like networking is not just about, finding your next client. It's about exchanging ideas. Like I went pretty recently into networking events. It was a conference, and then there was like there was an event for entrepreneurs, people that was like starting on their business. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm going there, and I'm not an entrepreneur, but you know what? I'm just gonna get an idea. So I met these girls who were telling me a little bit about how they started their business and how difficult it was. So for me, it was, getting an idea really from people who lived those experiences. So I feel like networking could be used for that purpose as well. So,
Totally agree. Absolutely. And having new ideas is also being an entrepreneur. So that is what the
yes.
word means. So you are definitely an entrepreneur. Excellent. Urmi, you're passionate about women's empowerment, and that really
Hmm.
speaks to me. What barriers do you see women facing in traditionally male-dominated fields? Like finance is one of them, IT is the other one of them. And do you
Yeah.
think that similar ones exist in industries like translation? And when I say that, I think I mainly talk about maybe CEOs or different, companies who take decisions for the
Yeah.
industry.
You know what? I think there's a one common thread that all of the industries face, which is a lack of representation, I would say, and a lack of diversity. And I know it is very prevalent in the IT industry. It is in finance as well, like it is in other parts of in other sectors of the economy. Like I met also, let's say, there was this girl that I met. I think she was I can't remember in what field she was, but she was also telling me it's very like underrepresented, and I was like, really? And so I didn't know that, but then she told me about it, and I feel like there is a common thread, unfortunately. And that's because I think it's coming from the fact that we have at senior level, maybe a lot more male figures who are managing and running companies. And sometimes I feel like and it's not probably their fault, that's how the society is. And also because I think as women, we just don't believe in ourselves as well enough to climb the corporate ladder. Like, for instance, at Women in Leadership, which is the organization that I'm part of, one of the things that we always talk about how some of these women are so driven and ambitious, and they all want to move the corporate ladder, but then sometimes they feel stuck. They feel like they're not good enough. They feel like, there is a whole issue around the imposter syndrome. And then, of course, there's other obligations outside of their work. And so because of that, their growth just stops. And so you see other people going forward with that. And so we're trying to change that kind of like mindset. And we want women to continue furthering investing in themselves and to go and grow in companies, because that's the only way you can drive change. And so I know this is very prevalent in the finance industry as well as in IT. And I'm sure it is also in the translation business where, there is a lot of underrepresentation, unfortunately.
Yes, for sure. And I think that also in the translation industry, there are not as many women CEO or directors
That's
or
right.
women who are confident enough to start their own business. Because when you're a translator, you have to be a solopreneur and then an entrepreneur. You have to grow your business, but you can also very much start your translation agency and go to the next level. So yes,
Mm-hmm.
I can totally relate to the confidence part. It is much more difficult probably for women
Yes.
to believe in themselves and believe that they can do it. But having strong examples, right? So following
Mm-hmm.
people on social media,
That's it.
like you and so many women who share their journey and their expertise, but also share the stories of success. And
Yeah.
there, with social media, there are so many examples that we can follow. There are so many successful women who have these
Yes.
amazing programs. Most of them are free as well, so you can just
Yes.
listening to them makes you feel really confident. One of the women that I've been following in the last years is Marie Forleo. I don't know if you heard about her. She's amazing. She's a U.S. Author as well, so published author. She has a lot of coaching programs for businesses, and she holds so many talks online. I mean, she's inspired me so much. She's actually coming to London later this month,
Oh,
and I'm so excited to go. And it's just an example. There are so many opportunities to go
yeah.
and listen to successful women and learn from them.
Yes. I agree with you on that. I also follow a lot of inspirational people and I watch a lot of YouTube content and I listen to a lot of podcasts, and every time I feel like I'm able to learn a lot from these free resources that are available to us, and being able to see that there are other women successful out there that are, breaking the glass ceiling and making it through. It just gives me like a sign of hope that I can do it too, and that hopefully other women in other parts of the sector or in other part of the economy can do it too. Yeah.
For sure, there are definitely more opportunities to represent nowadays. I think we're given the stage in many events and in many industries
Yeah.
as a metaphor, and I think people are really
Yeah.
interested in that and really
Mm.
cheering women, which I think it's really different than 15, 20 years ago. So we're living good times, I would say, both for
Mm.
cultural representation but also
Yeah.
for women representation.
Yes, definitely. And I do feel like well, at least from in my opinion, I do feel like women are coming together and putting all their forces together to basically drive change. I feel like I see a lot more support from one and another compared to the past.
Yes, and I think they trust themselves more, because seeing so many examples and
Yeah.
watching so many things on social media, TV as well, it's really giving you the confidence to get up and do it and try and persevere. And I think one of the greatest qualities that women have is perseverance, right? And consistency,
Yes.
right? So with
Yes.
perseverance and consistency, you can go very, very far.
I agree. I definitely agree. And we are I do like to say we're go-getters. That's like my favorite word, go-getter. We
I
are
love
like
that.
that. We just go after our dreams, our ambitions. If we want to get something, we just go and get it.
I love that. That's a very good way to put it. So, speaking about mentoring and coaching, what role does mentorship play in your life, and how do you think language professionals can create mentorship circles for growth?
Let me tell you this. I think mentorship has been super important in my life. Like I was both a mentor and a mentee, and now I am a mentor, mainly a mentor because I'm helping a lot of women. And the mentor, as I always like to say, it's not about titles. I think we often think that, for you to be a mentor, you just have to be part of a big company. You have to be the CEO of whatever company. But honestly, you can learn from someone who's much younger than you. Because again, I feel like it's about an exchange of ideas and being creative. So, someone, let's say, you are in your 30s and then you have a mentor who is, let's say, in their 20s, that's still okay to have because you can get a lot of fresh ideas from someone who's much younger than you. So, mentorship has been really tremendous because I feel like I was able to learn from people that have gone through certain experiences, people that have been a point of reference. And I always say, mentorship, it's sort of like being a lifelong learner. Like you can learn so much about life from all these people that went through a lot of struggles and a lot of successes. And I think, especially when it comes to language learners or even translator, is very important to have mentors. And you know why? Because if you are working on your own and you are seeking for advice, the best person to ask for information is your mentor. So there are organizations out there that can like literally pair you up with potential mentors so you can sign up to their programs. Most of them are actually free. And I also like to say that if you don't find a mentor, even your friend can be a mentor. I always like to call this friendtor. It's an actual word, which is a combination of the two. And even your friend can be your mentor. Someone who has, lived through different experiences, who knows about the industry, who knows about the stuff, can be able to really share resources and information. So I think mentoring is so important in any kind of industry, but it's even more important, I would say, for language learners or translators who are working on their own.
I love that. I think having a mentor or a coach in many aspects of your professional and personal life is so important because from one point of view it takes the edge out of questions you keep on asking yourself and you don't get answers to. But it can be anything really, from business to finances to
Yeah.
technical aspects, or even a senior, or as you mentioned, a friend translator. And there are so many circles
Yes.
that can mentor you for free. I know that
Yes.
in the UK and England there's so many local, and even if you join any networking event you find a mentor there, so you don't even know that you needed
Yes.
them until you find them, and just exchanging ideas, right? Just getting a fresh perspective on things and discussing some of the things that you might have been
Hmm.
struggling struggling with, or maybe you need help to build something new or to set yourself for success. And it can be
Yes.
also paid, because a lot of times investing in coaching or mentoring or training can be so rewarding
Hmm.
long term, so can help you get unstuck from where you are.
Yes, definitely.
I love that. Urmi, did you ever have this imposter syndrome, and how do you navigate it? And what advice would you give to women and men as well in freelancing or small businesses?
So imposter syndrome, you know what? I heard this word many, many times, and I even participated to a lot of webinars and workshop about it. And let me tell you this, I think in one way or the other, we all go through that. We're just not aware of it. We're really just not aware of it. Like when we start second guessing ourselves, when we're just wondering, why am I here? Did I deserve this to be here? Those are signs of imposter syndrome. And one thing that I have learned by going to a lot of these webinars is how they teach you that wherever you are, it's because you deserve to be there. Okay, you are there because you're meant to be there. And pretty recently, one thing that they share with us when it comes to imposter syndrome, which I think could be beneficial for anyone listening, it's the importance of doing two things. One, basically, you can document every single success or every single achievement in your success journal. So you can document every time you have achieved something, and you can use that as a way to go back to remind yourself of why you are where you are. And then the second thing that I very much like, and which is something that I do on a regular basis, is reframing. So basically, let's say you have suddenly a negative talk. So let's say you tell to yourself, I want to do this, but I'm afraid I'm going to fail. Then tell yourself, but what if I actually succeed? Or maybe let's say you have failed something, then use that as to think about, like, this could be a learning opportunity. So basically reframing in a way where you switch your negative talk into self-positive talk. So those are the two things I would suggest for anyone listening to do.
I love that. I think those are excellent pieces of advice to think about your success, that all those little and big steps brought you where you are today, and you deserve to be where you are today, and you go so much further than that. And just reflecting on where you were just a few years ago, or even on a shorter lifespan. But reframing negative thoughts, it's an important one, right? So to try to train our brain to look at opportunities and not see challenges, or talk to others, right? Because others have this amazing ability to see the best in us and to surface all those things that we might not be able to see.
Yeah, I agree. Yes.
Love it. So talk to us a little about your book, Urmi, and your journey to self-publishing.
Yes. So I self-published my first book 3 years ago. And I basically went through the self-publishing process because I was like, you know what, I don't want to wait on anyone. I'm just gonna go on my own. I'm gonna go and use my own timeline and everything. And let me tell you this, it was a very fulfilling experience, being able to do it on my own. And I think that's how every single entrepreneur feels when it comes to creating something. Because first of all, I didn't think I was going to be able to do it, but then as soon as I've done it and I saw the creation, the result of my creation, I was like, yeah, that's it. I can go and tell the world that I'm a self-published author. And so that was very rewarding and very fulfilling. It really did take me 30 days to write my book. Because I had a friend who I see as my mentor, who basically told me that, there is this research that you can rely on if you want to like write your first book. And then of course it took me another 2 weeks extra to basically get help from a freelancer to edit it, format it, come up with a cover page. But the whole process was very, very rewarding, and it made me think that, if I can do it, anyone else can do it. Like we often hear people saying, yeah, I want to write a book, but no one ever goes and do it. But I can tell you that the process is very straightforward if you have a clear idea of what you want to talk about. And most of the work just has to come from you having a draft. And then the rest you can hire someone to do the finishing, basically. So that's how I did for myself.
I love that. Wow, 30 days to write a book. How inspirational. That is amazing. What learnings came with writing the book? What did you learn about yourself?
I What did I learn about myself? I don't know. I feel like my inner child just came out when I was writing that because every single memory was pretty vivid in my mind, and I just felt like I was reliving those moments as I was writing them. And also, like before writing the book, one thing that I was working on or practicing was like basically working, like writing blog posts on my blog that I used to have for 4 years. And that's when I was like, yeah, I think I'm ready to start writing. And so for me, it was very therapeutical, if I have to say the truth. Like I can go back and say, if anything happens, at least I have something concrete that I can rely on and show to the world that I have done it. But it was a very therapeutical, and also the fact that I was very determined to like make sure that I was finishing it within 30 days. Yes.
I see. Well, all those great qualities came to life. So about what we were discussing before. So consistency, also
Yes.
creativity, and also giving back. So I can definitely see the core values that you have there depicted. So this is a biography, or me, right?
Yeah.
So
And
your
yeah.
book is
Yeah.
about your
Mm,
story.
yes.
Interesting, interesting. And would you like to give us a sneak peek? Maybe we make people curious and they want to go and check your book.
So basically, my book is about my childhood and teenagehood. And basically, I talk about my life as a third culture kid. So for those who do not know me, third culture kid basically means someone who is born or has spent most of their childhood or teenagehood in a country that is different from their parents. So I am Italian by birth and Bengali by blood. And so basically in the book, I talk about how these two cultures were basically part of my life and how it was for me to fit in either one of the two. And at the end of the book, I basically gave this one message, which is to accept and embrace your cultural identity. And I talk about how I embrace both of them and I create a fusion of the two. And that's why I was saying I am Italian Bengali without ever choosing either one or the other.
I love that. That sounds really interesting. And I will add the link to your book in the video description so that we can check it out. So how do you see the role of creativity, Urmi, shaping professional identity in any field? And you obviously are taking so many creative roles outside of the financial corporate world. How do you see creativity shining through?
Let me tell you this, it's creativity is here to stay. It's here to stay because I think when I think about the word creative, I always think about you giving a piece of yourself to other people or using your imagination to create something that you really are passionate about. And I would say that when it comes to creativity, you can, you become innovative. You're using your imagination, your ideas to create something to solve a problem. And so you're creating a solution for the other people, whether it is a business ideas, whether it is to, create a book, create a course. So I feel like creativity is always going to be here, and it's an element that you need if you're building your personal brand, whether you are a translator, a business owner, you are a financial professional, or so forth, because that's how you will like thrive, and that's how you will be able to stand out the competition. Like if you think about our economy right now, if you think about the world where we live right now, there's so many things happening, there's so many things changing, and some products stay, whereas some other products are just out of the market. If you think about it, like there's this company Kodak. I don't even know if it still exists, to be honest. The camera company
It does.
is it does exist, okay, but I feel like now all the cameras are just incorporated in your phone. So or maybe think about MP3, for instance, right? Like I don't think they exist anymore. I don't think so, but I remember using it back in the days, right? So this is where creativity comes in. It's just for you to be innovative and to be able to come up with different products, different services, and how you can provide a solution to the people around you. And this is applicable to any type of industries. Yeah.
I love that. Being creative and being authentic
Yes.
are definitely the two most important things, both in the corporate and entrepreneurial world, as well as personal, of course. So that is really really interesting. Thank you so much, Urmi. This was a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing not only your experience but so many tips. You are definitely a person that has gone through a lot of experiences. You enjoy working in different fields. You are definitely the embodiment of creativity, but also generosity, because I think there has to be a lot of generosity to give so much back, and being involved in so many projects. So this was amazing. Thank you so much for joining my podcast. I will add all your links in the video description, including the link to your book, so that we can follow you.
Thank you.